Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're not just reading a story, we're stepping into what feels like a suffocating high-pressure chamber.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
We are looking at a world of eternal twilight, obsidian towers that just scrape the sky, and this geopolitical conflict that is going to completely flip the script on your understanding of good versus evil.
It really does.
We're analyzing a really significant narrative arc from Duskbound, and let me tell you, the tension in the source material is immediate. It's claustrophobic from page 1.
It is, and what I think makes this particular deep dive so fascinating is that it takes a very familiar trope, the chosen one or the lost princess, and it just drags it through the mud, literally.
Right.
We're following Fia Riftborne. She starts this journey, and she absolutely believes she is a soldier for the righteous side, the Sídhe, only to wake up in a prison cell in a land called Umbrathia.
And she's not there to be rescued.
No, she's there to be broken. That is the explicit goal.
And Umbrathia is not exactly a vacation spot. It's a land where the sun is permanently eclipsed, the mist never seems to lift, and the people are, well, they're literally starving. But here is the kicker, and this is the core conflict we're going to be grappling with today. Fia has spent her entire life believing her people are the defenders against the dark forces of Umbrathia. She thinks she's the hero holding back the night.
She's a true believer.
Totally. But once she's captured, she starts to realize that her beautiful, thriving, sun-drenched homeland, it might actually be the vampire in this equation.
That's the crux of it right there. It's a narrative about perspective, but it's also about the insidious nature of propaganda. We're seeing a prisoner of war slowly realize that her prosperity, her warm baths, her full belly, her sunlight, was bought at the cost of her captor's survival.
It's a heavy question.
It forces us to ask, if your paradise requires someone else's hell to exist, are you really the hero?
That is a heavy question to start with, but it's the right one for this. Yeah. And we have a lot to get through today. We have prison breaks. We have a very complex, almost biological magic system involving shadow wielding.
Oh, yeah, the void burns. We have to get into that.
And we have a brooding captor named Aether with golden eyes, which is a huge genetic anomaly we need to discuss.
Oh, yeah, important detail, yeah.
Oh, and massive bat-winged horses called Verdure.
The Verdure are a biological marvel, and I have many, many thoughts on the evolutionary implications of a horse with bat wings.
I knew you would. I was counting on it. But, okay, our mission statement for this deep dive is specific. We're not just going to recap the plot.
No, this is more than that.
We want to unpack the mechanics of this magic system. Why does it hurt? Why is it so scarce? We want to analyze the tragedy between these two realms, Sídhe and Umbrathia. And most importantly, we want to trace Fia's evolution.
Which is such a journey.
It is. She goes from a defiant prisoner trying to literally stab her way out to a reluctant savior who has to prepare for this brutal tournament called the Streka.
And that evolution isn't linear. It's messy. It's not just a physical journey. It's a dismantling of her entire identity. She has to unlearn everything she knows about herself and her world.
So where do we start?
I think we have to start where the text starts. Let's talk about the tower and the captors.
Okay, let's set the scene. Ravenfell. Even the name sounds like a warning, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's not exactly Sunny Meadows.
Not at all. The source material describes it as a fortress city of sharp stone and gargoyles. Fia is locked up in an obsidian tower, and the atmosphere they describe is just heavy. The sun is eclipsed, the mist never dissipates. It's oppressive.
And that environmental storytelling is so crucial here. The text mentions that only muted rays of an eclipsed sun broke through. This isn't just an aesthetic choice, to set a moody vibe.
Right, it's a plot point.
It's a major plot point. The world is literally dim, and you have to contrast that with Fia's memories of her home, of Sídhe. Sídhe is described as lush, bright, with these bountiful harvests. Ravenfell is a fortress of gray.
And for Fia, who has been isolated in this tower for 6 weeks, that lack of color, of light, it's psychologically devastating.
6 weeks. Let's just pause on that for a second because it's so easy to just gloss over.
Yeah.
She's been in a stone room, alone, for 6 weeks with almost no human interaction. The text says she felt a numbness, that the gray of the world was seeping into her mind.
She realizes this isolation wasn't an accident. It was a tool. It was deliberate.
It's a very specific interrogation tactic. It's sensory deprivation. You remove all the stimuli, the color, the light, the conversation, to make the prisoner's mind more malleable, more open to suggestion.
So by the time Aether finally walks in,
she is starving for any kind of input, even if it's hostile. It makes her vulnerable. And the man orchestrating this whole psychological breakdown, is Aether.
Aether. I'm really struggling to label him here. You called him the antagonist in the intro, and, I mean, sure, he kidnaps the protagonist. That's textbook villain behavior.
It is on the surface.
But looking at his actions, his motivations, does he actually fit the villain mold for you? It feels more complicated than that.
It really depends on whose timeline you're looking at. For Fia, in week 1, he's a monster. He is absolutely the guy keeping her in a stone box.
No question.
But the source material does this really clever thing where it slowly peels back his motivation, layer by layer. He's described as having these intense golden eyes, which the text notes are unique among the Umbra.
Right. Most of the people in Umbrathia have dark hair and eyes that glow silver when they use magic. But Aether is gold.
That distinction feels so important. Is it just to make him look cool, or is there a deeper symbolism there?
I think it's highly symbolic. I mean, in a world literally without a sun, the man who is trying to save it has eyes the color of the sun.
Oh, that's good, yeah.
It marks him as different as other, even among his own people. And his dynamic with Fia is, I mean, intense is an understatement.
It's antagonistic, for sure, but it's also deeply personal. He seems to believe Fia is just in denial. He calls her princess with this venomous tone, mocking her ignorance, her privilege.
He's not just trying to get information out of her.
No, not at all. He's trying to force her to see what she is. He's trying to hold a mirror up to her.
And what she is, according to him, is a Duskbound. But Fia is fighting that label with everything she has. She sees herself as Sídhe. She sees them as monsters.
But it's not just Aether she has to deal with, right? We meet this whole cast of characters that breaks that mold of just faceless enemy soldiers. We have Vexa.
Vexus is fascinating. She acts as the pragmatist to Aether's, his tortured idealist?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. She's the one who comes in after the 6 weeks are up, brings Fia clothes, and actually tries to integrate her. She's described as having void burns, these inky, scar-like tattoos on her skin. She's a vessel.
I want to get into the biology of those burns in a minute because it sounds horrifying. But Vexa, she brings a humanity to the Umbra. She's sarcastic, she's tired.
She's clearly overworked.
Completely. And she's dealing with subordinates like Effie and Rethlin. Effie is just hostile and jealous of Fia from the jump.
Very much the high school mean girl archetype, but in a deadly army.
And then Rethlin is this laid-back comic relief who apparently makes terrible wine.
The bad wine detail is great. It's perfect because it humanizes them, but it also points to the scarcity. Why is the wine bad?
Because the grapes are probably withered husks.
Exactly. It shows that this isn't just a faceless army of darkness. It's a dysfunctional family unit. They have inside jokes, they have petty grievances, they have hobbies, and Fia is slowly being forced to realize that these monsters are just people trying to survive in a dying world.
But before she gets anywhere close to that realization, she tries to escape. And this scene in the beginning is so pivotal because it shows us her power versus theirs.
Yes.
She uses her mind control, which she calls a focus on Effie.
Okay, let's break down that scene because the mechanics are really interesting. Fia sees minds as these orbs or lights. She can reach out with this web from her spine and take control.
It's described almost like a puppeteer finding the strings.
It is. And she successfully takes over Effie and forces her to walk her out of the tower. She's feeling confident. She thinks, I've got this. My magic works here.
And then she runs, literally, into Aether.
Yeah.
And all that confidence just evaporates.
She doesn't even get the chance to fully use the mind control on him because he physically overpowers her so quickly. But the really interesting moment, the moment that defines the power gap between them, is when she pulls a dagger.
She has this hidden dagger. She goes to stab him in the leg.
And the text says an invisible force stops her fist. She physically cannot drive the blade home. It's like her arm just freezes in midair.
It's like hitting a wall of air. And Aether just stands there and calls her pathetic.
It's so brutal, but what is that invisible force? Is that his magic? Or is it something about her magic failing in his presence? That's the implication, isn't it? He's clearly immune to her mind control, which suggests his mind is shielded or just fundamentally different. And physically, he seems to have some sort of passive defense, a shadow manipulation that acts faster than conscious thought.
It sets up the power dynamic immediately.
Yeah.
In Sídhe, Fia was powerful. She was special. Here,
she is completely outmatched. Her powers are behaving strangely, and she's up against something she doesn't understand at all.
which leads us perfectly into the magic system.
Yeah.
Because this is where the mystery really, really deepens. The Umbra keep calling her a Duskbound, and she keeps saying, no, I'm just a soldier with a weird power.
This is the central mystery of the first half of our source material. Is Fia a shadow wielder? And the physical evidence is mounting against her denial. The text mentions that when she first arrived, she had shadows swirling in her irises.
Right. In her eyes.
But after 6 weeks in that tower, deprived of darkness, those shadows disappeared because she hadn't fed on it.
Okay, let's unpack the terminology here, because the source material gives us two very distinct categories, duskbound and vessels. And I want to push back on the battery analogy I've heard people use before, because it feels a bit too mechanical.
I'm so glad you said that.
When reading Vex's description of the void burns, it didn't sound like she was plugging into a wall socket. It sounded invasive. Biological.
Oh, that's absolutely invasive. You have to look at the specific language the source material uses. It describes the shadows as stitching themselves into the soul.
Stitching. That's such a visceral image.
It is. A battery is passive. This is symbiotic, maybe even parasitic.
And the text mentions the ink on Vex's skin actually swirling. It's alive. It moves across her knuckles. So when a Duskbound charges a soldier, they aren't just transferring energy. They're transferring a piece of that living void.
Exactly. A Duskbound is a rare individual, usually of royal blood, who can create and command shadows. They are the source. They generate the power. A vessel, or Kalfar, as the soldiers are called, they're like Vexa. They cannot create shadows. They have those void burns, which allow them to hold and use shadows.
But those shadows have to be given to them.
They have to be given to them by a Duskbound. It changes the whole dynamic from fuel to something more like blood.
So the Duskbound is the heart, pumping blood into the vessels who are the lings of the army.
That's a great way to put it. And the problem for the Umbra is that they are running out of hearts. Aether mentions that there hasn't been a Duskbound born outside the royal line in a century. They are desperate for a donor.
And Fia is the donor.
Whether she likes it or not. And there's this incredibly intense scene on a bench where Aether basically forces Fia to accept the shadows again, just to prove his point.
It's a real violation of her person.
It is. He engulfs her in darkness. He puts his hand on her jaw and just floods her with it. It's a show of absolute power.
And her reaction is so complicated. It's not just pain. She describes the sensation as oblivion, but also delicious night.
Yeah.
She hates it, but her body craves it.
She feels like a missing piece is returning. The text says, it feels like a long-lost piece of me had been nudged into place.
That terrified me for her. That's the moment the propaganda starts to crack, not because of logic, but because of a physical sensation she can't deny.
It should be terrifying, because if she enjoys the darkness, if it feels natural, then the enemy is right. It proves she isn't the seed soldier she thought she was. It's a full-blown identity crisis happening in real time. She's fighting her own physiology.
And then we get the scientific confirmation. They bring in Talon, the scholar or medic character, to observe her. And Talon discovers something that just shocks everyone in the room.
He's like the biologist in a monster movie, the one who figures out the creature's true nature.
Exactly. And he says Fia's essence is self-sustaining.
Self-sustaining is the key phrase here. Normal magic in this world, what the Umbra call a tether, relies on the land's essence. You draw from the earth, but the earth is dying, so tethers are getting weaker and weaker.
It's a limited resource that's running out.
But Talon says Aether and Fia are different. They seem to generate their own power from nothing. They don't need the land. They are the power source.
That breaks the laws of physics in their world, doesn't it? I mean, energy usually has to come from somewhere.
Yeah.
If Fia's generating it from nothing, she's basically a walking perpetual motion machine.
Or a walking nuclear reactor in a world that's running on AA batteries.
Yeah, that's a better analogy. And it confirms she is a Duskbound, but maybe even something more potent, something they haven't seen before.
Which makes her a political weapon, a solution to their dying realm, the only hope they have.
But Fia isn't just going to accept that role. She needs a reason to care about these people who've imprisoned her.
And that reason comes in the form of a very large, very chaotic, and frankly, very cool animal.
Yes. The Verdure. I have to be honest, when I saw a bat horse in the notes, I rolled my eyes a little.
I think we all did.
It sounded a bit, I don't know, YA fantasy bingo, but the biology here is actually surprisingly detailed.
It is. The authors, Greenwich and Lennox, they put some real thought into the anatomy. These aren't just Clydesdales with wings glued on.
You know.
They have bony protrusions instead of ears, which you have to assume is for some kind of echolocation or maybe aerodynamics. They have ridges down their spines, and they are massive.
And they aren't domesticated in the traditional sense. Vexa makes a big point of saying they choose their riders. They're wild animals. You can't force a Verdure to accept you.
Vexa rides a black one named Rasker, but then we meet Trigger, the silver Verdure.
Trigger is a character in his own right. He's described as a show-off. He's chaotic.
Yeah.
And his diet. Let's talk about his diet. The text describes him eating dried, rotten meat bark.
Meat bark, just let
What
that
the-
sink in. It's so disgusting. But it's also brilliant world building. It is. But think about why he's eating it. He's a carnivore, clearly. A predator. But there is no fresh meat to hunt. The scarcity is so bad that even the elite war mounts are eating preserved, rot-resistant rations.
It grounds the fantasy creature in the gritty reality of famine. It's not just a cool monster, it's a starving monster.
And the relationship between Fia and Trigger is instant. There's this incredible moment where Trigger, this massive, dangerous beast, just walks up to Fia and bows his head.
Vexa is stunned. She says, Trigger has just claimed you, and apparently this is a huge cultural deal.
It's the highest of honors. But the honor comes with a price, which is that Fia has to actually ride the thing, and she has absolutely no idea what she's doing.
This scene is pure comedy amidst all the gloom and doom. She's trying to mount him. She's slipping all over the place.
And Aether's just standing there, leaning against a wall, making these snarky comments. You're going to get kicked in the face.
He really enjoys seeing her struggle, doesn't he?
Oh, he loves it. But it leads to this very chaotic takeoff. Fia manages to scramble on, but Trigger decides he's done waiting and just launches straight into the sky.
No warning. And Fia has no reins. She's panicking, just clinging on for dear life.
And Aether has to jump on behind her to save her from falling to her death. It's a classic trope, the forced proximity, but the text treats it with a lot of tension. She's physically trapped against her enemy, feeling his heat, his breathing. It's deeply uncomfortable for her.
But at the same time, she's flying.
Exactly. And that flight represents a turning point for her. The text says, I had forgotten how to feel it all. Up in the air, away from the stone walls, she feels freedom for the first time in months.
It's a moment of pure exhilaration. But that exhilaration is cut short very, very quickly when she looks down.
This is where the tone shifts completely. We go from the thrill of the flight to absolute horror because they fly over the landscape of Umbrathia, and it's dead.
It's a wasteland.
And this moment, the flight over Umbrathia, I think this is the pivot point for the whole narrative. It's the moment the genre shifts. We stop being in a prison break story and we land hard in post-apocalyptic story.
And it's so effective because of the scale. In the tower, Fia's suffering was personal. I am cold. I am lonely. Up on the verter looking down at the dried riverbeds, the suffering becomes systemic. She sees the physics of the theft.
That's the perfect word for it, theft. Because Sídhe isn't just wealthy, they are parasitic. The description of the skeletal forests and graveyards of twisted limbs really drove that home for me.
It's not just that the trees died. It's that the life was sucked out of them. Aether explains that Sídhe is draining the essence, the actual life force, from Umbrathia using these Arcanine towers.
So Sídhe is basically sticking a giant magical straw into Umbrathia and drinking its milkshake.
That's exactly what is happening. And the contrast is just brutal. Fia remembers Sídhe as lush, healthy, with overflowing gardens. Now she realizes why.
It frames the sea prosperity as a zero-sum game. And for the listener, for the reader, this forces a really uncomfortable reflection. Fia has to realize that her salads, her warm baths, her bright lights, they were all paid for by the starvation of the people she's looking down at right now.
It completely flips her entire worldview upside down. The foundation of her reality is just gone.
And to make it even more concrete, Aether takes her to a specific location, the ruins of a village called Croig.
He doesn't just let her see it from above, he makes her walk through it.
He does. Croig was a former farming village. He takes her down to the ground to walk through the ruins. It's abandoned, it's rotting, and he tells her the story of Lal, that young boy we met earlier in the city.
Yeah, Lyle, the kid who was training in the arena with a wooden sword.
Aether explains that Lal is an orphan because his parents were poisoned by the very vegetables they tried to grow. The land was so corrupted, so drained of healthy essence that the food itself became toxic.
That is horrifying. It's not just that they are hungry, it's that the earth itself has turned against them because of what Sídhe is doing.
It turns the Saintie's crime from some abstract energy theft into direct biological warfare, even if it was accidental.
And Aether mentions that the sky stood still. The seasons have stopped. Time itself is broken in this land. The drought isn't natural. It's a symptom of a world being murdered.
Which leads to the central moral dilemma. Aether lands them, he looks her in the eye, and he challenges Fia. He asks, would you abandon them?
And that's the question, isn't it? Fia is Sídhe. These are, by all definitions, her enemies. But she's standing in a dead village and has just been told unequivocally that her people killed it.
Her internal conflict must be tearing her apart. To save these dying people, she has to fight her own. There is no neutral ground anymore. She can't go back to her cell and pretend she doesn't know.
She realizes that silence is complicity. But just as she starts to lean towards helping the Umbra, we get a reminder of what she's up against back home.
Yeah, she has a dream. A vision.
The vision of Larrick. Now, Larrick was her commander back in Sídhe. He was also her love interest, right?
Yes, there was a deep romantic connection there. But in this vision, Larrick is he's unraveling. He looks unkempt. He's drinking whiskey in the middle of the day.
He's obsessed.
He's obsessed with the figures, the shadows he saw when Fia was captured. He's paranoid.
He's not the composed, perfect soldier anymore. He seems unhinged. And Mercer, his second-in-command, is trying to talk some sense into him.
Mercer is trying to be the voice of reason. He's saying, look, maybe we shouldn't just charge in and attack right now. We don't have the intel. But Larrick is having none of it.
He says something chilling. He says, they will return what's mine.
What's mine, not who's mine. That phrasing gives me the creeps.
It should. It's possessive. He views Fia as an object, a possession that was stolen from him, not a person who was captured. It paints him in a very, very different light.
In the beginning, Fia thinks of him as this noble protector. Now, through the lens of what she knows about Umbrathia, he looks like a terrifying warlord. He's mobilizing the entire city guard to rain destruction on Umbrathia.
And he thinks he's the victim. He's doing it for her.
Which raises the stakes immensely. Fia isn't just fighting a static situation of starvation anymore. An active invasion force is coming. Her ex-boyfriend is coming to burn down the place she's currently trapped in, all in her name.
The irony is just staggering.
And this urgency forces the Umbra to act. They can't wait for Fia to slowly come around anymore. They take her to the Citadel to meet General Erkin.
Erkin, he sounds like a charmer.
He is the bad cop to Aether's, slightly less bad cop. He is the ultimate skeptic. The political climate in the Citadel is incredibly tense. The council is divided. There's a faction called the Vulcan, who are described as dangerous extremists who just want to go to war.
So Erkin is trying to hold it all together, but barely.
Barely. And into this powder keg walks Fia. Erkin does not believe she's a Duskbound. He thinks she's a spy. And honestly, looking at it from his perspective, can you blame him?
Not at all. She's a soldier from the enemy army who conveniently has this legendary world-saving power that hasn't been seen in a century. It sounds like a trap.
It sounds like the oldest trick in the book. So Erkin gives an ultimatum. If Aether wants to prove Fia is what he says she is, and if Fia wants a seat at the negotiating table...
She has to prove it.
She has to prove it, publicly. She has to enter the Strika.
The Strika. This sounds like the Hunger Games portion of our deep dive. Why a tournament? Why not just have her do a magic test in a lab with Talon?
Because of the culture of scarcity we talked about, Umbrathia values strength above all else because weak things die there. The Strika is a set of trials designed to select elite soldiers for the Spectre unit, which is Aether's squad. It's a public display of competence and power.
It's political theater.
Completely. It's about winning over the hearts and minds of the council and the military.
Okay, walk me through the trials. What does she have to do?
There are 3. Trial 1 is hand-to-hand combat. Vexa notes that the bar is pretty low this year because they are so desperate for bodies.
We're desperate for bodies is never a good sign for military's chances.
Not a great recruitment slogan, no. Trial 2 is tether observation. That's the magic show. Displaying your magical power to the council. But Trial 3 is the big one. It's called the Void.
The Void. We've heard this term thrown around before. It's not just a dark closet, is it? What is the Void?
It's described as an ancient mass of darkness in the north, a physical place. It's an absence of existence, a hole in the world. And walking into it is the ultimate test of your nature.
So what are the risks?
Vexa and Aether explain the possible outcomes. Possibility 1, you die. Just cease to exist. That is the most likely outcome.
Great, off to a good start. Possibility 2.
You emerge as a vessel, the void burns you, brands you, you get those void burns like Vexa has, and you come out able to hold shadows.
And possibility 3, the one they're hoping for.
You emerge as a Duskbound. You walk out completely unscathed on the outside, but marked on the soul. You become a creator of shadows, a source.
So they are basically throwing her into a black hole and saying, if you come out, a god will believe you. If you die, well, you were probably a spy anyway.
That is the gamble, yes. And Fia, against all odds, makes a choice. She agrees to the trials. But, and this is so important for her character arc, she sets terms.
She does. She doesn't just roll over.
Mm.
She demands to be part of the negotiations if she succeeds. She refuses to be their puppet or their weapon.
And she says she wants to find a third option, an option that doesn't involve destroying Sídhe. She still wants to save her people, even though she knows their leaders are the aggressors.
She refuses to slaughter the Sídhe citizens who are unaware of the truth, the ones who are just living their lives in blissful ignorance.
She wants to be a bridge, a very fragile bridge over a very deep, very violent chasm. And that is where our source material leaves us. Fia Riftborne, a prisoner of war, agreeing to walk into the void to save a world she was taught to hate while trying to protect the world that betrayed her.
It is such a complex, morally gray setup. So let's zoom out. What does this all mean? Why does this story matter beyond just being a cool fantasy plot?
I think it matters because it's a story about the cost of luxury. It's a direct confrontation with the idea that our comfort is often built on someone else's suffering. Sídhe is beautiful because Umbrathia is dying. It forces the reader and Fia to ask, who is paying for my comfort?
And it's also about identity, right? Fia is stripped of everything, her rank, her history, her entire worldview. She has to decide who she is when all the labels are gone. Is she Sídhe? Is she Umbra? Or is she something else entirely?
That's the big question. Talon said she was self-sustaining. She might not be just a Duskbound in the traditional sense. She might be a new evolutionary step in magic, something neither side has ever seen before.
A new variable in a broken equation.
Exactly. And if she steps into that void, will she come out as the savior Aether needs? Or will she come out as the monster that General Urkin fears she is?
I want to leave our listeners with this thought. We often think of light as good and dark as evil. It's one of the oldest binaries in storytelling. But in this story, the light is what's burning the world, and the dark is what's trying to shield it. It completely inverts that binary.
It challenges the reader to look past the aesthetic, doesn't it? Just because something looks pretty and bright doesn't mean it's good. And just because something is dark and scary, like a giant bat horse eating something called meat bark,
Right.
it doesn't mean it isn't necessary for survival.
Exactly. Sometimes the monster is the only one who can save you. And Fia has to decide if she's willing to become that monster to do what's right.
I wouldn't bet against her. She's a survivor.
Thanks for diving deep with us today. This has been a fascinating look into Duskbound. We've unpacked the biology of void burns, the economics of magical theft, and the psychology of a hero-turned-villain. Or maybe villain-turned-hero.
Or something in between.
Something new. Keep questioning your assumptions, keep looking for the truth that's hiding beneath the surface, and maybe stay away from the rotten meat bark.
Sound advice. Very sound advice.
See you next time.